done that, yes, you're a step ahead. Come on now. For our last one tonight, 418, meet me there, on that happy golden shore where the faithful part no more. Meet me there. On that happy golden shore where the faithful part no more, where the storms of life are all, meet me there. When the night dissolves away into pure and perfect day. Spoke to him the other day and he's doing well. Bit to go just yet. You were there the other day.
Yeah, he's got clots.
Yeah.
Strong blood thinners.
Yeah.
So perhaps it'll be another day.
Yeah. He wanted to be out Mother's Day, but I don't think he will be. He's got a ways to go. He said he's pretty weak. He can't walk. But he's recovering. Yeah. Sounded good on the phone. He was pretty happy that about the Eagles, so. Which is not hard, really. Yes.
I'd like to pray for my my brother. He went to hospital last week because of an ongoing heart condition, and he had chest pains, and he stayed over at my house the day before,
your brother's name?
David.
David. Pray for David. Is he in hospital or is he at home now?
He's at home at the moment.
Pray for David.
I spoke with Randall. His mum's doing better.
Good.
So still, and they tried to change their flights to fly out later than Saturday, but it was going to get too expensive, and they've only just rolled back all the credits and all that has all been changed now. It's all back to the old rules, so it was too expensive. So they're going to still fly out on Saturday night, but she is feeling better, and everybody else in their family is fine as well, which is a blessing. But we pray for them when they leave.
Good. Any more for any more? Jude.
Our Sunday services.
Yep. Gemma, anything from down that corner? Could be death as opposed to salvation. Okay, for those who need to be saved, yes.
Just continue to pray for the city and
Yes.
Just the man that was saved on Monday night and also for Spencer's growth.
Yeah. Led a man to the Lord Monday night named Shay. That was a great blessing. All right, that's it. Okay, thank you.
Bit of a one-man band tonight. How much do you tithe? Oh, yes. Oh, man.
How much will we pay you not to dance?
How much do you tithe? Oh, man. You guys are all wearing red tonight. The rapture, I hope not, brother. I hope that's not the case. I know people are away working and some sickness and things like that, but yeah, all right. I know there are some people tuned in online this evening. I do have a letter from, well, I'll read the letter. I think it's next week when things are a little bit smoother, a little bit more organised than what they are this evening. Let's just go straight to Daniel, and we're going to look at Daniel chapter number 12. Daniel chapter number 12. This evening, this is the last one in in the last chapter of Daniel. We're not going to finish it tonight though, because next week I want to go back and I want to do a book overview. I was going to say an exam, and you can't. If we fail it, we have to go back to chapter number 1 again. No, it'll just be an overview, a pictorial overview of the book, and sometimes review helps and makes it sense a little bit. I was trying to think this in my office, and I went to go look, and I forgot to go look, but I'm almost sure that I took a Daniel course in Bible college as one of my electives, one of my credits, and I can't remember anything in that class. So I only say that because oftentimes when you go through a book, and sometimes on Wednesday night, some people have not really paid any attention to the book of Daniel apart from the Sunday school stories. And so some of the information is like brand new. Don't be off-put by it, because every time you read through a book of the Bible, it's like, whoa, I didn't get any of that. Ezekiel, for instance, is a book that you just go through, and the first time you read through it, you might get to the very end and go, I had no idea what was going on there. But then you go back and you read it again, and then you pick up just a little bit. And then you go back and read it again, you pick up a little bit more, and then you pick up it again, and it's sort of like little light starts it starts being pieced together and bits and pieces. So don't quit if something is too hard on the first time through. Go through again, and you'll get little bits. And that's really what the purpose of Daniel was, not to do an in-depth study, I've seen people do like 50 and 60 sermon series through the book of Daniel. Like we have not done that. We have deliberately just gone one chapter at a time to hit the high points and get a sort of a somewhat of an overview. Daniel chapter number 12. We're going to read from verse 1 down to verse 13, and then we'll take any thoughts that there are tonight, and we'll go from there. It says in verse 1, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Now that's a follow-on, that's a continuation from chapter 10, 11, and now 12. They all go together as one. Zach, can you just go to the back and turn the back TV on for me, please, so I can see what's on the screen? Thank you, sir. Verse number 2 here, and many of them that slept in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto the heaven, and sware by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And I heard, but I wondered not. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth, and cometh to the 1,335 days. But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. Right, the chapter number 12, the final concluding thought here in the book of Daniel. Any thoughts here tonight? Comments before we move on? Jude asked about the rivers. Last week he mentioned the rivers were a reoccurrence, and there's some things here that I realise that this is a reoccurrence of chapter number 8, which is where the rivers are mentioned, and there's a link here which was in answer to that observation that you mentioned. If you had not mentioned it last week, I probably wouldn't have paid attention to it, but I'll show you that in just a minute.
I'm reading through Revelation slowly, morning devotions, and I see a lot of this
Yes.
in the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
A lot of them connect.
I realise that as well, and it actually makes me want to go read the book of Revelations now that I've read through Daniel and sort of get an idea of what's going on and what he's talking about.
Makes sense when
Yes,
you look at Revelations, because it's putting it together.
it's the same language.
Yeah,
It's the
it
same.
is.
It's the same language. It's talking about the same, about a beast and about a leopard and a bear, and it's like, oh, I know this actually. I've got a grounding here, or at least a foundation to work with. And I definitely think if you're going to study prophecy, you've got to start with Daniel, what we've done, and use this as the starting point, because it sort of lays out, points you in the direction to go. Like I said, it sort of gives you the trainer wheels, and it starts off as a really easy prophecy with the interpretation, what it means, and then it sort of takes one training wheel off, and then it takes the other training wheel off, and you're meant to still continue going in the same direction. But this is what happens oftentimes with prophecy, is that people go to study it, and as soon as the training wheels are taken off, like you get to chapter number 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, and the training wheels are off and you're like, what's going on here? People go, and they go off in weird directions. No, just keep going in the same direction that your little bike, that your little treadly was pushed in, and keep going in that direction. This is about the nations. This is about the consummation of the age. It's about God bringing things to a final concluding point through the nation of Israel as well, while working with the Gentiles. So keep going in that same path.
So
On
not all that John saw was new. He amalgamated what he saw
yeah,
with what he'd read.
I think what the vision, everything he says in that is a vision that he saw. Not everything, but the vast majority of Revelation is a vision that he saw. But that vision wasn't something that was completely brand new vision. It was things that are found elsewhere in the scriptures. In fact, I think it's in chapter 1 where he says, "Blessed are they that read the book," because to understand Revelation, there's nothing new in that vision that John had on the island of Patmos. There's nothing new. It always links back to different parts in the scripture. So it talks about the tree of life. It talks about the river. It talks about the throne of God. It talks about you have the vision in chapter 1 about the presentation of Jesus, which is like here in Daniel. It's the two candlesticks, which are linked back to Zechariah. So there's always, it's like one vision that actually meet.
So God might God be affirming.
Yeah, which is what you see here in Daniel. These visions in Daniel, which is what we have on the screen. Sorry, I'm pointing up there. You guys are here. But Daniel chapter 8 and what he sees here in Daniel chapter 10, 11, and 12 are different visions, but they're essentially he's actually saying the same thing from a different perspective, which is what I noticed. And no one else made comment of this when I was reading through the commentaries and what I was reading and listening to, but I can't help but notice the similarities as you do probably. I was going to, if we were more, if our technical staff were here, we were going to slowly reveal this, but now it's there. So now you're already at the end point. But in Daniel chapter number 8, it says, it makes this, that it starts off in the 3rd year of Belshazzar, and then in Daniel's vision in chapter number 10, and 10, 11, and 12 are the same vision, the same story. And this happens in the 3rd year of Cyrus. And then you have the vision in 8, which is the ram and the he-goat. That's about the Persians, and then Greece coming and defeating the don't mess with the one-horned goat. That's in chapter number 8. And then you have Persia and Greece mentioned all the way through here in chapter number 11 about the king of the north and the king of the south, the Seleucids and the Ptolemaic empires fighting against each other, and how they ended up on the battleground of Israel so many times because that was in the crosshairs. And then you have in Daniel chapter number 8, which is where the river is mentioned, where they rise up, the ram and the he-goat rise up out of the river, which is the river Ulai. And that river is either a canal or it's an offshoot, and there's a little bit of conjecture exactly where it is, but it's around Susa, around Shushan, there in Persia, Elam, and he saw that vision there. But here we have the river Hiddekel in chapter 10 and verse number 4, that he sees coming out of the river Hiddekel is the one like unto the Son of God, the one that he is portrayed in the same language as Revelation chapter number 1, as Jesus is presented, with the white hair and the glowing persona, eyes of fire, and all the way down to the feet, and that comes out of the river. Then you have the 4 horns, where that one horn is broken, which is Alexander the Great. That's breaking. 4 horns come up in its place, which is the dividing of the Grecian Empire. He talks about the 4 kingdoms that is divided between the 4 winds, meaning north, east, south, and west is what it means by the 4 winds, that they were divided by geography. And you have the 4 kingdoms that are mentioned in chapter number 11 again. In chapter number 8, it makes mention that he will wage war towards the pleasant land. That has to do with Israel. And it's worth being reminded of this, that chapter number 1 is written in Hebrew. Chapter number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are written in Chaldean, in the tongue of the Babylonians. And then, or Aramaic, Chaldean, and then from chapter number 8 again, it goes back to Hebrew. So these are in Hebrew. So there's a deviation that these prophecies are about the Gentiles in the world, but the rest of these visions are specifically around thy people, about thy holy land, the holy city, as it says in chapter number 9. Chapter number 8 it talks about the pleasant land. It's talking about Israel specifically. In chapter number 10 it talks about the glorious land. Again, talking about Israel specifically, that one of those kings comes in and does damage to the glorious land. In chapter number 8 you have the desolation of the sanctuary and the sacrifice taken away. And then you just read about that in chapter number 12, we just read then in verse number 11. From that time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, and then it gives you a time. But it also asks the same questions. In chapter number 8, they ask, how long? Daniel asks, how long is this? And he's given in Daniel chapter number 8, 2,300 days. In Daniel chapter 10, 11, and 12, again, you're asked, how long? Which he asks that in verse number 6. That says 16, it should say 6. How long shall it be at the end of these wonders? And he is told 1,290 days. He's also given another number there of 1,375 days as well. Of 35, sorry. And then you have the man in the river. Chapter number 8, if you have it, chapter 8, verse 16 says this, and I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai. Now, if you're between the banks of Ulai, if you're between the banks of a river, where are you? You're in the middle of the river, which is the same location, which is who answered the question about how long. It's the man in the middle of the river answers Daniel in chapter number 8, and here in verse number 6, and one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river. So this one, which is, how long shall it be at the end of those wonders? And he answers. So there's similarities here. In chapter number 8, the angel Gabriel comes and gives Daniel, and Gabriel is mentioned by name, and he gives Daniel the interpretation and what the dream means. And the one standing in the river tells Gabriel to go give him understanding. In chapter 10, 11, and 12, you have Michael is mentioned here. Michael the archangel is mentioned. So there's another angel, but it's sort of from the perspective of Michael's view as opposed to Gabriel. I think Gabriel is also mentioned in here because I think it's Gabriel that's talking to Daniel and it's not Michael that's talking to him. And you get that from verse number 21 of chapter number 10 or 20. It says, Then said he, Knowest thou wherefore I am come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the prince of Persia, which I think is Gabriel speaking. And when I come forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come, and I will show thee what is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael your prince. So it's not Michael that's talking, but Michael is mentioned a couple of times in this vision. So the angel Michael is mentioned in this vision, Gabriel is mentioned in the other. In chapter number 8, it talks about at the time appointed is the end. And then in here you have that the end shall be at the time appointed. Same similar language, same similar points. And then Daniel chapter 8 gives a specific time to Antiochus Epiphanes, that little horn that comes up and is mentioned as a horn here. And in Daniel's account, Antiochus Epiphanes is also given a lot of attention as well. So there's similarities here. You say, what's the significance of these two similarities? I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know. Why is it done again? But it's not the only time in Daniel that the same information is repeated. And it's sort of like getting us focused in on a particular direction, particularly around Antiochus Epiphanes. He's mentioned twice and given a great amount of time. And also, it fast forwards us to the future. Because at the time, at the end, in chapter 12, Michael stands up, and a great prince standeth up for the children of thy people. Thy people for Daniel is the Jews, is Israel. And so Michael is their prince. And there shall be a time of trouble, as was never since there was a nation, even to that time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered. Now, if you turn over to Revelation 12, I think you'll find something very similar here. Revelation chapter number 12. the same sort of language is used, as Blue mentioned. If you read Revelation now, you'll realise that the same language that is used in the book of Daniel is used in the book of Revelation, which is still pointing us onward, yet to a future time. Revelation 12, verse 1 says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered." Is that the one I was looking for? Where does it say Michael? I thought it was in verse 1. Oh yeah, verse 7, sorry. "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night." Now, the devil seems to have right now have access into heaven still, because Job, in the day that Job's trial happened, Satan came in amongst the sons of God. He still had access with those angels. He still had access there. So there's coming a time though where he loses access and he is fully cast out down to earth, which is what happens here. And what is he doing before God? He's accusing the brethren, which is what he was doing with Job as well. Job only serves you because you bless him. He's accusing, saying Job isn't really righteous. He's not really serving you because his heart is in it. He's serving you because you're blessing him abundantly. That's accusing of the brethren. Slandering is the work of the devil. "And the accuser of our brethren is cast down, and accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of his testimony, and they loved not their lives until the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and for the sea, of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child." Now that woman is the nation of Israel. Is what is, if you were to read earlier, that brings forth the Son, which is the Lord Jesus Christ. "And the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, and the persecutor of the woman which brought forth the man-child. And the woman were given 2 wings of great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman. And the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood with the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ." So the devil stirs up a whole heap of strife, and in Revelation it tells us it's for a time, times, and a half. That's the same language as what is Daniel's time. So he says there's going to be, at the very end, there's going to be great trouble like never before in the history of nations is there going to be like this particular time. Now, if the devil comes down to earth, and he, instead of influencing, he's actually the one at work, there is great turmoil and strife amongst the nation, but particularly towards the nation of Israel, which is what he's saying, towards thy nations. And trouble as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered. Now, he says, how long is this going to be, is what the question is asked. How long is this going to be? And this is the answer, which seems strange. But in verse number 7, the one clothed in linen said this, he swore by him that liveth forever that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. Now, in Daniel's 70 weeks, the 7 years, a time, times, and a half is 1 plus 2 plus a half, which is 3 and a half. It's the 42 months. It's the 1,260 days. It's the same thing repeated, just in a year, month, and day format. So a 3.5 years is what it would seem. The second half of what is known as the time of Jacob's trouble, the tribulation, Daniel's 70th week, the last half of that is a 3.5 year period of great toil and trials, particularly for the nation of Israel. And when he shall accomplish to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. And the way that ultimately is defeated is Jesus Christ comes down and breaks the kingdoms of men and sets up his kingdom. That's what it's pointing towards, that Jesus is coming again. And verse number 10 of Daniel says, many shall be purified and made white, but the wicked shall do wickedly. They're just going to, no matter what the prophecies say, the wicked are going to continue on being wicked. But there are those who will be wise, he says. None of the wicked shall understand. Oh, dumb, silly, ignorant prophecies. We're here to make money. But the wise shall understand, which is interesting because in 1 Thessalonians, when he talks about the man of sin and all these things, he says that Jesus comes as a thief. And he says that that he comes in the night where people are unprepared. But he says we are not of the night, that day should come as a surprise, however he words it. We should be children of the light, which is the same idea, that we should be looking and knowing and not be surprised that he comes. We should be prepared that he is coming again. And there is going to be this time that is mentioned again in verse number 11. And from that time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up. So this guy with the sort of who is going to have the devil enter into him, who is going to be the son of perdition. The devil is going to enter into him. Judas is also known as the son of perdition, and the devil entered into Satan. Satan entered into Judas, it says as well. And then we learn that he also is the son of perdition. There's similarities there. The devil is going to cause great strife on this earth, but ultimately he is a defeated foe. And that's what he tells us. That's what God is telling us. Right, there is a devil. He's going to try his darndest, but it's not going to work. And he is going to lose. I mean, he is a defeated foe. And Jesus Christ will ultimately set up his kingdom. And the abomination is made mention here in chapter 8, in chapter 9, and chapter number 11. Central to the nation of Israel. It would seem that it's going to be set up in a temple, which is why some people are expecting the building of a third temple. Much like Antiochus did, where he went into the temple that was there, and he set up an image to Jupiter and said, you cannot worship the Most High God, you must worship my Greek gods, and you must become Hellenized, you must become Greeks. You cannot worship, and made it desolate. And people are expecting something similar to take place again in a third temple that is built in Jerusalem, that this world leader with the influence of Satan on him will say, you cannot worship anything but me. You cannot worship you cannot worship the Most High God, and set himself up as God, which is what Paul says in 1 Thessalonians, that man of sin will come and he will set himself up as God in the place of God and will be worshipped as God. He says this is going to come. Now, if all those fit together and you overlay them all, there's still one final beast, one final ruler that comes in the power of Satan, that comes with a false peace, but ultimately makes war with the saints and against the Most High, and ultimately is defeated by Jesus Christ himself, which is where all of these are taking, where Daniel points us towards, to an ultimate victory. And every movie, every Hollywood movie, every storyline, it's good versus evil, good versus evil. And in these stories, good triumphs, and we rejoice. Where do we get that from? Because that really is the story of all of humanity. It really is the story of light versus dark, good versus evil, and ultimately good will triumph. God will defeat the powers of darkness, and those things will be abolished forever. And don't fear, don't fret, press on. And if you want to get anything out of this in a practical sense, is verse number 3. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. If you want to do something, be someone who turns someone to righteousness. Go tell your friends and your neighbours and your co-workers and whoever else to to come and trust on Jesus, turn them towards righteousness. And God says you'll shine as the stars forever and ever as a blessing towards those people. All right, we're going to leave it off there, and we're going to go to our prayer time this evening. So find a prayer partner or two, and if you can remember the prayer requests.